All right, so we're going to be finishing up They Say, I Say today, talking about chapters 8 and 10. We'll start with chapter 8, move to chapter 10, meta-commentary, talk briefly about the discussion posts and what you guys will be responding to this week, and that'll be it. So in They Say, I Say, Graff and Bergenstein start off talking about how the best compositions establish a sense of direction by making explicit connections among different parts of the text so that what is said in one sentence both sets up what is to come and is clearly informed by what has been previously said. And this is referring to either different paragraphs or even sentence to sentences. Often we need to do the work ourselves, right? So when you write a sentence or paragraph, you set up the expectation in the reader's mind that what comes next will in some way echo and extend it, even if, especially if, that next sentence takes your argument in a new direction. So in this chapter, they show the arms reaching forward and reaching back. It's a silly little figure, but I thought that is a very helpful reminder as we're writing what we need to be doing. This is something usually that students need to go back to their drafts to see if they connected the parts, because at this point, if you're not doing this as a writer, you're probably doing it not knowingly, right? Because I'm sure as you're reading this, you're thinking like, yes, this is a good idea, I'll do this, or I am doing this. So know that this is something after you already have a down draft that you'll want to go and see if you're connecting the parts using the different strategies that they give. So the 4 strategies they give: the first one, using transition words; second, add pointing words; third, developing a set of keywords or phrases that are repeated throughout the text; and then the fourth, repeating yourself but with a difference, which the other moves strategies set you up to do. These are all pretty straightforward, and the text gives great examples of that. Developing a set of keywords or phrases is the one I did want to spend a little bit of time clarifying. So, for example, if you're talking about the impact of language and identity on students, a term to use throughout your paper, and this is based off of like what scholars, like how they phrase this, a subject term that they index students by, is linguistic identity. Right, so that would be a phrase that you might repeat throughout it, and you can either make up your own phrase, right? You're entering in as scholars, you definitely are able to say, this is what I'm going to use to describe this, this is the term I'm going to use to describe this group or this concept, or more commonly when this, but not more right necessarily, just more commonly when this is used, it's when you see a subject word. Sometimes the subject words that you used in searching, when you see it repeated throughout, not just the article, one of the articles you read, but several of the articles. That would be an indicator of an key phrase or word that you would, a keyword or phrase and key phrase that you would repeat throughout it. And so that not only does it demonstrate that you have read and are an expert in this, you know what you're talking about, but it adds this connection through it, this unison as for the reader, right? So it definitely is one that when students come to this point, they haven't really taken on. So that's why I wanted to explain that. But if you have experience with that, great. Okay, so chapter 10, the art of meta-commentary. So we practice the meta-commentary every day in our colloquial speech. Anytime you say, what I meant to say was this, or my point wasn't this, but rather this, right? And just talking with your friends, with anybody, that you're telling them how to interpret what you just said. That if we're going to boil it down, that's what meta-commentary is. Graff and Berkenstein define it as a way of commenting on your claims or telling others how and how not to, which is equally as important, to interpret them. You're not offering a new point, but rather telling the audience how to interpret what you've already said. And why is it important? Because no matter how clear you are in your writing, readers can still fail to interpret it in the manner that you intended. And additionally, it will help you develop your ideas, go more in depth, and generate more text. So I'm sure a lot of you at this point have gotten feedback before from other professors or teachers saying, like, go more in depth, develop your ideas. And I feel like that students want to do that, but a lot of times they're not quite sure how. Meta-commentary is a great way to go deeper and to add to your text in a valuable way that's not just rambling on or just repeating something you said, so you're making the page limit. Also, connection I want to talk about. In the art of quoting, the explaining component in the frame for quotes is the same as meta-commentary. Meta-commentary just like exists outside of that. But when they say have the quote and then afterwards you're saying in other words, blah, 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 that's technically meta-commentary. So if you're noticing some parallel, there definitely is with the art of quoting, the explanation point, and the art of meta-commentary. So a few examples before the discussion question that I thought were very useful. They definitely give more, but just ones that I personally have used or like are, in other words, blank, or what X really means is, ultimately then my goal is to demonstrate that blank. That is not to say, but rather X is less concerned with than with. To put it another way, and then I thought this picture was very helpful. So the book tells us that this is how we should view our writing, as having a main text and then a meta text that exists to tell the readers how and how not to interpret their text. So here we see the main text saying, all writing is conversational. Then the meta text saying, now don't get me wrong, I'm not saying. And so that's a good idea to think about, like a good visual to think about, what does this actually look like? What am I doing in this move? Okay, so for the discussion post, we're going to be getting at the larger text as a whole. Now that we're finishing it, I'm going to be focusing more solely on your drafts. I want to get at how I can best come alongside you and re-explain, better clarify any things that we've covered at this point, because the writerly moves, while you're not required to, adopt like all the templates and implement them like we've talked about, you can definitely look at the moves, see what is they're asking you to do, and find your own completely different words of doing that, but the moves you are expected to apply. So this is kind of what this discussion post is getting at for this week. So the first question, in thinking about They Say, I Say, having read the book, what chapter has been the most beneficial to you in thinking about writing your research paper? Second one, in thinking about integrating writing moves presented in this book, what chapters or concept would you like more clarification on? And so with that second one, nothing's too big or too small. And that is it for this week.